Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new Q&A. This video was made in advance, which I normally don't really have the time for. I usually work on a weekly basis, but tomorrow I'll have to go to the airport, I'm going to catch a plane, and I'm going to visit Blizzcon, I'm going to visit America. I'm gonna go on a holiday. I wanted to make sure that you guys and girls wouldn't be lacking any content while I'm away, so I made this one a little bit early, as well as a few videos that are ready to go as I enjoy my little holiday, so that you won't be lacking any content. There were a fair few questions sent in, and hopefully you won't even notice that I'm gone. So with that out of the way, let's dive right into it, starting off with... Hey Noble, do you share the opinion that Blizzard is releasing too many books outside of the game for players to be able to follow the lore? For example, without your videos, I never knew how Garrosh ended in Warlords of Draenor and was left in the dark. By the way, great Q&A, smiley face. Alturius, I assume you mean Garrosh at the end of Mr. Pandaria with the whole trial in the novel War Crimes. Now, I personally agree with the idea that too much important lore is told within the novels and not within the game. I don't think there would be a problem if Blizzard was able to take these stories and tell them properly within World of Warcraft itself, but there are a fair few examples in which this didn't happen at all, or it was done very poorly. Take the bombing of Fedamore for example. The events were described in the novel Tides of War, and this event pretty much started the entire storyline with Garrosh during Mr. Pandaria. They tried to tell it with the in-game scenario, but we ended up with a very simple cutscene, not explaining all the big events leading up to it. The scenario itself was, not the best. And afterwards, with Jaina trying to flood Orgrimmar, deciding not to do it, that never made it in. At other times, events simply don't make it in at all. Your example is a great one. Garrosh's trial definitely had to be part of the game. It's what started off Warlords of Draenor with Kairos and Garrosh escaping. There's a whole new reality now, all that awesome stuff, and it never made it in. They did add a free short story to the WoW website, which explained the moments between the escape and the formation of the Iron Horde, and it's great that this story is free and available for everyone, but it would have been so much better if it was actually shown in the game. I don't believe the visions of the past during the legendary questline did it justice. They could have added a scenario where you see Garrosh on trial, maybe a vision of the past, maybe an outside movie kind of thing, but honestly, what we got with the legendary questline, with those visions that you follow, and Chromie is wondering like, hey, what's Garrosh doing here? I don't think that was enough. Now when it comes to the lore shown outside of the game, I feel like it should be additional information and not key elements to the storyline. Lords of War, for example, it was a great addition to get an idea of who the warlords were, what to expect within Warlords of Draenor. The Blank Scroll, a minor example, which is a free short story, it had an awesome story to tell, but it's not a key element to the overall storyline. Even a novel like Vol'jin Shadows of the Horde did it right in my opinion. It talks about Vol'jin's time recovering from the attack during Mr. Pandaria. This led into the Darkspear Rebellion, and in this case, it didn't feel like Shadows of the Horde played a key element into the overall storyline. It did give some awesome additional insight into the mindset of Vol'jin. The whole Horde is family, Garrosh doesn't get that. I loved that part of the book, and yet 5.3 told the story brilliantly without the need of the novel to support it. It was an extra thing, but it was not a key element, and in my opinion, that should be the case for all the novels. Next question. Hi Noble, do you know anything about Falric? You know, the boss from Halls of Reflection? I know only that he was in Warcraft 3, but nothing more. Is there anything else? Also, I'd love to hear you say something in your national language. Keep up with the good work. Cheers from Mikkel. Beautiful last name. I've had the question stored for quite a bit, as you can see, because I was never able to get my hands on the Death Knight manga, but now I do, because I wanted to make sure if there weren't any key details, so now I'll be able to give you a more complete answer. Falric has been mentioned together with the other boss Marwyn a few times in the story. The first time takes place within the novel Arthas, Rise of the Lich King, in which young Prince Arthas is waiting for the survivors of Lordaeron to make their way to the palace. By this time, Stormwind had fallen to the might of the orcs. Word had reached the capital that they were coming. Falric was on guard duty at this point, and Arthas had brought him a warm cup of tea. Such a visit to the guards and amongst the common people was not unusual for the prince to do. His father did sigh about it, but Arthas knew that no one was ever punished for speaking with him, and indeed he sometimes wondered if his father secretly approved. These visits the prince made him beloved amongst his people, and Falric sipped his tea with gratitude as Arthas peered over the walls. The guards had not seen the survivors yet, but as Arthas watched, he could see them approaching. Falric complimented the prince's sharp eyes and was about to send Marwyn to inform the king, but Arthas told them that he would do it, and he quickly rushed out of there. That's the first interaction with these two guards, but Falric and Marwyn would later on join Arthas in his campaign against the undead, Falric by this time having earned himself the title of captain. They had known each other for years by now, which made Falric more forthright with Arthas, and high on the list of people that he wanted joining him on this mission.
We must help her!
Stay your blade, Captain. She can take care of herself.
Together with Jaina Proudmoore, they investigated the plague that spread across the lands of Lordaeron, and just imagine what kind of shock it must have been to the men. The undead were now walking the land. This was something they had only heard of in scary stories, but had now become a gruesome reality. Their former friends, their families, their citizens were infected by the plague, turned into the walking dead, and each of them had to be put down. Eventually in the storyline, they reached the point where Arthas decided to purge Draenor, take care of the infected, and put them out of their misery. Several of their men, including Jaina and Uther the Lightbringer, they walked away from all of this. They could not stand by their prince as he purged Draenor. Yet some of them did remain at his side, like Falric, who told the prince that he'd rather be hacked into 1,000 pieces than be turned into one of the undead. So together, they pushed on and they purged Draenor. Mal'Ganis taunted the prince to follow him to the cold lands of Northrend. Arthas got a small army together, and he did just that. Mal'Ganis in the end was found, but the troops were overwhelmed by the undead, yet hope lingered on the horizon in the blade known as Frostmourne. Arthas believed that this blade would mean their salvation, so as he and the dwarf Muradin went out to find it, Falric and the rest of the troops, they stayed behind to hold the lines long enough for Arthas to return.
Captain, I'll leave you to organize our defense. Let's move out.
With the cursed blade in his hand, he slaughtered the undead and he took his revenge by striking down Mal'Ganis. The prince then left them all behind after the victory, and even Falric had gone missing in search of the prince. One knight named Vasarian, he offered himself to go and look for these two, and in the cave where Arthas picked up Frostmourne, he did find the Captain Falric, but not the man he used to know. He, as well as Marwyn, they'd been turned into Death Knights, and as Falric explained what the prince had done, how he had burned their ships, betrayed the men, he stabbed Vasarian and turned him into a Death Knight as well. Eventually, the prince and his new undead comrades, they returned to Lordaeron to slay his father and bring the kingdom to ruin. Falric and Marwyn were there with the prince, as bone white as he and twice as merciless. They slaughtered the people of Lordaeron, eventually charged with the task of resurrecting new subjects out of the dead so that Arthas could rule over them and turn them against their own people.
Men, women, and children. None was spared the Master's wrath.
For the longest of time, we wouldn't hear a thing about either Falric or Marwyn until we entered the Halls of Reflection in search of the Cursed Blade Frostmourne and a possible way of weakening the Lich King.
Falric, Marwyn, bring their corpses to my chamber when you are through.
As you wish, my lord.
Soldiers of Lordaeron, rise to meet your master's call.
After being with Arthas for all his life and even beyond, Falric and Marwyn are put on the task of taking care of us, yet not even these Death Knights nor the spirits of the soldiers of Lordaeron were able to stop us.
Marwyn, finish them!
And that's where the story of Falric and Marwyn ends. Next question. Hi Noble, do you wish that Warlords of Draenor never happened lore-wise? From Instagip. Instagip, this one is tricky to answer because I don't really believe that Warlords did a whole lot for the overall storyline. Pretty much all of the story took place on another reality, where the main initial threat to our reality was the whole Ironhorde invasion. They tried to pull the story back to the olden days of the very first Orcus Horde invasion, the Dark Portal turned red, Zayla and the Ironhorde they teamed up. But unfortunately, that massive threat that we were supposed to be scared of, it was taken care of within the introduction patch. We were then forced through the Dark Portal to party in alternate Draenor, and they tried to give a similar feeling as the novel Beyond the Dark Portal, as in, we can't let these orcs just do what they want, who knows what kind of damage they might do to us, they might do to other planets, we have to go in there and we have to take care of business. I noticed that not a lot of people really got that sense of danger or understanding of the storyline, because a lot of people people understandably asked, why are we going to Draenor in the first place? Why not just bomb the Dark Portal or set some guards around the portal and be done with it? Because it was so easily taken care of. But I really think that they wanted to tell that story of beyond the Dark Portal, of we have to go in and we have to take care of them. Either way, whatever story they tried to tell, we did end up on alternate Draenor, and there we did our thing. We helped this alternate reality against threats like the Iron Horde, the Burning Legion, there were the ogres, all the good stuff that we saw during Warlords of Draenor. We took care of these threats. All of these events, besides maybe the Everbloom dungeon, they stayed on this alternate reality, which didn't create a whole lot of fear or threat towards our reality, towards the overall storyline. How cool could it have been for us to, for example, lose our garrison for a while, be actually kicked off the planet and forced back through a portal, forced to defend Azeroth because the might of the Iron Horde is too great. That never happened, unfortunately. It all stayed neatly inside its own little bubble until they decided to take the lore and started to mess it up on Twitter. No longer was the story of Warlords of Draenor in its own little bubble, since they decided that the twisting nether, it now transcends all realities. One single tweet caused the bubble to burst open. The story of Warlords of Draenor now spread out through the main storyline. It now became part of everything that has happened in Warcraft. You now had the Legion, Archimonde kill Jaden. Mainly that bit, it was affected by the expansion, it was affected by this tweet. No longer were we fighting against an alternate Burning Legion, this is actually our Burning Legion. Combine that with time travel, with possible duplicates, or maybe no duplicates at all, with the Draenei having the same origin story, and you end up with a very big mess. I really hope that they'll still reverse that tweet, still reverse that decision, because you have to ask yourself, why did they make this choice? They wanted to get us familiar with these orcs of old, right? With the storyline of the past, possibly, most likely because they wanted to get us ready for the Warcraft movie, but why make the twisting nether transcend realities? Was it to fight our Archimonde? Well, to be fair, any Archimonde fight without a world tree to blow up would be pretty sweet, so I don't really see the need to make it our Archimonde. Was it then to send Gul'dan back to our reality? Well, considering that there are multiple portals popping up all over the place, we've got so many gateways between realities, it wasn't necessary to use the Twisting Nether for this. I speculated about a possible connection with Illyria and Tyrellian and the Twisting Nether, but all in all, it just doesn't seem to have that much of a purpose, at least from what I can tell. From what I can tell, compared to the overall storyline, it seems like this tweet causes more problems and more trouble than it actually adds to the storyline. So long story short, I personally don't really care about the story of Warlords one way or the other. You can easily disregard it when you look at the overall storyline. The start of the story, the start of the expansion, it was okay. I loved being able to see Draenor before it was destroyed. I loved some of the side stories, the cinematics and the voice acting were brilliant, and all of that, it was okay in general. I dislike, of course, that stories were cut out. I think this expansion probably has the worst ending they've ever created, with the whole Gromash being like, yeah, I was the bad guy, but now we did it, guys, we saved Draenor, I'm not a bad guy anymore. It just makes so little sense, and it gives you a headache if you think about it. But like I said, all of Draenor was in its own little bubble, and if you want, you can easily just forget about it. That on its own is of course saying a lot for the storyline of Warlords of Draenor, the little expansion that could, but simply didn't. Right everyone, this brings me to the last question for this Q&A, and as always, a little warning, I am going to speculate about things that might happen in Legion, so if you're desperately avoiding spoilers for Legion, let me just say thank you very much for watching, and please turn off the video right now. Hey Noble! Since it looks like Sylvanas will be featured in Legion, and they mentioned she only has a few Valkyr, she may die. If that happens, do you think Lillian Voss would make sense as the new Forsaken leader? I know she had some serious hate for being undead, but a lot of time has passed since her resurrection. Wanted your thoughts on this as the lore master, big fan, great videos. Sylvanas' role in the story has switched the moment that she took revenge and we took care of Arthas at the end of Wrath of the Lich King. Up to that point, her whole motivation was to get her allies, get territory, build up troops, create some plague of her own, and she wanted to get revenge. With that storyline finished, they had to do something with the Banshee Queen. They had to give her a new purpose. So what they did was they gave her a short story in which Sylvanas threw herself off the top of Icecrown. She ended up in hell to which the Valkyr offered her a deal. They would take her place in Hell, they would keep her undead existence going, and from that moment on, her role became all about surviving. Her Forsaken were no longer arrows in a quiver, as the short story described it, they were now her bulwark against the infinite. Notice, by the way, that we don't really know what the Valkyr get out of this deal. Apparently this deal allows them to get away from the Lich King's control, from Bolvar's control, yet it seems like they simply exchanged one master for another. Some speculate that the Valkyr have alternative motives, that they manipulated Sylvanas into believing that she ended up in Hell, while in truth that never really happened. Why would they do that? Well, one idea is that Sylvanas would create them, or perhaps even the Lich King, create them more troops required to once again launch an attack against the world. Her Valkyr are more than willing to resurrect the dead. Sylvanas herself has even offered to resurrect Lorthmar's Fallen during the Siege of Orgrimmar, so those troop numbers are definitely rising. That's one theory going around, Sylvanas being manipulated by the Valkyr. Eventually we'll figure this out, we'll stand at the Queen's side, we'll band together against the Valkyr, possibly the Lich King or the Dreadlords, but personally I don't really see this happen during Legion. Now if we take a look at her description on the Legion website, it says the following. The Forsaken's ruthless leader is a formidable champion of her people, but with the Burning Legion's invasion, the stakes for the Dark Lady have never been higher. Should Sylvanas perish, her demise will be the beginning of her eternal damnation. All that stand between her and this doom are her Valkyr, yet few of those spirit guardians remain. As her fate edges closer to the abyss, Sylvanas must decide how far she'll go to protect her people, and whether they're more precious to her than her soul. It seems like the description on the Legion website, it blows the previous speculation out of the water. Her demise will be the beginning of her eternal damnation. It seems like the Valkyr did not trick the Dark Lady and that hell truly awaits. She'll have to make a choice. Are her people more important to her than her soul? And from the short story calling them a bulwark, to me it always looked like she didn't really care much about her people at that point, and all she wanted was to stay out of hell. Fate will push her closer to the abyss. The choice will have to be made, yet you have to wonder, is there truly a choice to make? Just think about it for a second. She'll have to make a choice between her soul or the Forsaken or her people. The Forsaken player base is not going to be removed from the game. We know that much already. You can't just pick up a player base and say, okay, you play Forsaken, you now play Blood Elf. You play Forsaken, you now play Tauren. That's not going to happen. So what kind of a choice is there? Not much. Now how this choice will be forced upon her, that's entirely up for speculation. Perhaps it's going to be connected to the Worgen storyline, we don't really know, but we can be pretty damn certain that the Forsaken players are going to be fine. That leaves us with only one option, right? Sylvanas will decide that her people, they're more precious to her than her soul, so that means the end of Sylvanas Windrunner, right? That's what the options give us, but considering how people react when I say even the slightest negative thing about the Banshee Queen, I feel like Blizzard knows better than that, better than to cause riots in the streets. I can't imagine them really removing Sylvanas as the Banshee Queen. There are too many fans who love her character, who love her story, who don't want that changed. So what can they do then? What does it leave us with? Well, how about a storyline in which she does place her own people above her own needs, yet for this choice she doesn't get sent to hell, instead she gets rewarded. This could be with additional Valkyr to keep her going. This could be with, say that she'll get one more life, right? She'll get one more life, there are no more Valkyr, she only has one life left, yet the afterlife that's waiting for her is no longer going to be hell or torment, and for the sake of her people, she decides to stick around and no longer toss herself off the top of Icecrown. There could also be something with the Holy Valkyr that resurrects her back as a former High Elven self, perhaps. Those are just a few possibilities, and this is all pure speculation, so pretty much anything can go. Now say that they do go with what I believe is the unthinkable, say that Legion really means the end of Sylvanas Windrunner, who could replace her? Lillian Voss, as you mentioned in the question, it could definitely be an option. Right now, as you also mentioned, her character is completely against anything that's related to the undead. She doesn't like necromancers, she doesn't like herself, she doesn't like the Forsaken, but perhaps she'll be able to find peace with her undead afterlife, or perhaps she'll even find respect for the Forsaken people. Another that I suggest is Koltra Deathweaver as a possible follow-up. He was taken to the Undercity by Sylvanas during the Cataclysm to remove any final weaknesses. He had a friendship going on with the Alliance Death Knight Vasarian, and Sylvanas did not like this. It's possible that Sylvanas and her people have been able to brainwash him. Perhaps they've been working on him to get him ready for leadership over the Forsaken. We don't really know what Coltra's been doing in the Undercity, what Sylvanas has been doing with him. So that's definitely also a possibility. You'll notice that I say a lot of possibilities, a lot of perhapses in this answer, since when it comes to speculating about this, we don't really have much to go on and it's very hard to predict the future. There is, however, one final addition to the story that I want to talk about, and that's the return of Illyria Windrunner. Illyria is the oldest of the Windrunner sisters, and she's been lost together with Tyrellian ever since the Burning Crusade. We have no clue what these two have been doing, where they've been, but Blizzard has said that they're going to make a return of Legion, so we can expect Illyria to return. A lot of you have asked me how this is going to go down, and honestly, I think after the events in War Crimes, a reunion with Illyria, it's pretty damn difficult to make any changes to Sylvanas. In War Crimes, Sylvanas opened herself up to the first sister, to Varisa, yet in the end of the storyline, Varisa, she backed out of their plans and left Sylvanas with a broken heart. I doubt that the Banshee Queen will easily open up her heart once more, not after being hurt like that, but like I said, it's extremely hard to predict all of this, and I can't wait for Legion to finally arrive so we can finally get some answers. So with that final question, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of this Q&A. BlizzCon will soon be upon us, and I'm so freaking excited to be there. I wonder how much information I'll actually be able to catch, but to be honest, the main reason why I go there is to hang out and just experience it. Even if it's only once, I want to experience this. For those wondering what will happen while I'm away, well, to be fair, not much with the channel, to be honest. Hopefully you won't even notice that I'm gone. I won't be covering the information from BlizzCon right away, as I've done in the past. I'm actually going to give myself a week or two to actually enjoy the holiday. Once I get back, I'll probably make a vlog or two out of the things that we see over there, maybe a quick update here and there, but I'm not going to cover it as I've done in the past. I'm not going to sit 48 hours like, this is the information, here it is, here it is, here it is. That's not going to happen this year. Now for the Mondays, for the lore days, I'm going to start with telling a story that a lot of you have requested over the years, and this one is gigantic, so it's going to be quite a few parts. This also means that the Q&As are going to be on hold for a little bit, but it doesn't mean that you can't leave questions down below in the comments or send them in over at Ask.fm. It might still be used in a future Q&A, it's just going to be a little bit longer delayed. If you're looking for a more direct answer to your question and you don't care if it's featured in a video or not, then you're always welcome to send me a tweet or leave me a personal message on Facebook. Links to all those places are down below in the description, and once BlizzCon is done, hopefully we'll be able to enter the Legion beta and start covering what's coming up. Time goes so fast, ladies and gentlemen, it's incredible. We're nearly at the end of the year. Oh man, it's gone fast. It's mind-blowing, but for now, it's time to wrap things up. As always, thank you so very much for watching, everyone. Have a great week. Subscribe if you like my videos. Leave a like on this one if you enjoyed it. And until next time, guys. See ya!